Have you had the opportunity to review the new consumer opt-out platform, and two, which is part of the Advertising Digital Alliance that was released on the said date? Mr. Pascoe?
Yes, I did read it, but it was some time ago. I will tell you that we applaud the initiative that they took. The issue is complex, and I think it's early days. It's too soon to actually judge the effectiveness. I think a lot of the complexity is that many of the participants have very different businesses and systems, and they are trying to figure out the best way to do this, and no one today knows the best solution. So the fact that they are trying, I think, is heading in the right direction. I'd also, you asked about limitations. I think it's time, it's consumer education, and it is applying many of these best practices and really learning from them. So it's just time at this point that's the limitation.
Would you more precisely define advertising purposes?
Can you actually rephrase the question, because I'd like to make sure I...
Let's try to define, quote, advertising purposes with a little bit more precision. What other uses of these online tracking tools and technologies would be permitted as not falling into, quote, advertising purposes?
Oh, you're asking what would not be considered advertising use?
More precise definition of what an advertising purpose is.
Would be. I'm not a lawyer, so trying to actually draft that language is challenging. I think it's worth a deep discussion. Today, the advertising industry is a large industry, $250 billion. It encompasses communication with consumers through direct mail, through advertising in terms of display advertising. And the information that's often used to inform those campaigns is information that can cover purchase information, and it can cover interests that they know about that individual, publicly available information about their college education, their level of education, their income. So to me, the information that might be needed to be used is broad, but most, if not all, major advertising initiatives today do not actually need to use personally identifiable information to deliver marketing messages on the web. So I don't know if that addresses it, but it's a lot of blended information depending on the business.
I would like to know from Ms. Gillman whether Time Warner, for example, can quantify and give us some indication of how this affects your business model and your ability to provide cable services to consumers at current pricing. Have you done studies? Is there any measurable data that we can look at?
We've not done a study that looked at that specifically, but I can speak to the fact that we need to innovate every day to adapt to consumer interests, consumer needs. They look to us to make improvements to our service every day. And in this debate being a very important debate, the risk one runs is that there are unintended consequences of a do not track policy, in that it prevents companies like ours from innovating. I'd also like to add, though, that the vibrancy of the Internet is extremely important as well. And what should be explored around this debate and discussion is really the unintended consequences for the smaller content providers and service providers, the small businesses in and around this ecosystem. The smaller the website, the smaller the audience, the more challenging times they have selling contextual advertising.
Okay,
so they do not have a large enough audience. So we really want to encourage innovation in the Internet ecosystem, and we want new players entering, and we want to make sure that any discussion around this debate does not prevent that from happening.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Whitfield, and other members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss consumer privacy, including the potential for do not track legislation. For Time Warner Cable, our relationship with our customers is the bedrock foundation of our business. We operate in a highly competitive marketplace, and our ability to succeed depends on winning and retaining the trust of our customers. It is our job to preserve and strengthen that trust while delivering content and services to meet consumer needs, as well as introduce the benefits of innovative network technologies and capabilities. I will make 2 points today. First, do not track proposals cannot be considered in a vacuum, but rather must be part of a larger conversation about the appropriate role of government in ensuring consumer privacy as more content, products, and services move online. Second, we believe it would be premature to require do not track through legislation or regulation, given the still conceptual nature of such a requirement. I will address each of these in turn. Advertising has emerged as a key driver of an incredible array of online content services and applications available to users at little or no cost. The more effective the advertising, the greater the advertising revenues available to fund these products and services. Simply put, advertising is more effective if the message is more relevant. This makes advertising more valuable to both the consumer and the advertiser. Traditional advertisers have employed such practices for decades. We would respectfully suggest that the appropriate framework for policy discussions is how to establish policies that encourage innovation while protecting privacy. In the first instance, policymakers should rely on industry best practices to achieve this result. Consumers have a keen interest in safeguarding their privacy, but they also want information about products and services, and they want access to free or reasonably priced products and services that is possible only with broad-based advertiser support. It is in this context that policymakers should review the appropriateness of a do not track requirement. Do not track raises some unique questions that make it significantly more complex than the popular do not call list. For instance, how would do not track affect consumers' online experience and expectations? Would they receive more pop-up ads? How would it affect diversity on the internet? Would it negatively impact niche websites with small but loyal audiences? Would it prevent new websites from launching? With do not track still at the conceptual stage, the next step should be industry-led efforts to refine and test the concept rather than legislation or regulation. The codification of a do not track requirement could quickly become moot in light of developing technologies. In contrast, self-regulation and best practices can quickly evolve to address the dynamic online environment. And while we believe that it is premature for Congress to move forward with do not track legislation without further study, any privacy policy generally, or a do not track policy specifically, whether adopted through industry best practice or government directive, should incorporate 2 principles. First, it should be focused on the kind of personally identifiable information that raises privacy concerns. And second, it must be applied in the same way with respect to all entities operating in the internet ecosystem. Allowing some businesses to track individuals while precluding others from doing so will lead to consumer confusion. Consumers would be better served by a single standard applied uniformly based on the data being collected and how it will be used. Regulation that disfavors one technology or business model would also deter entry, thwart innovation, and limit competition in the advertising marketplace. We at Time Warner Cable look forward to working with you on these very important issues. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gillman. Our next witness, Eben Moglen.